Hello, everyone. Welcome to MisinfoDay. MisinfoDay is hosted by the University of Washington Center for an Informed Public in partnership with the Washington State University Edward R. Murrow College of Communication. I'm Liz Krause, MisinfoDay Planner at the Center for an Informed Public. I'm so excited to be here with you today as we learn how to resist misinformation and be better informed. Before we start, I wanted to show you where we're all tuning in from today. We're here with students, teachers, and librarians from across Washington State and the US, and even have some people tuning in internationally. So thank you all so much for being here. This session is Fact-Checking Claims and Sources with Mike Caulfield and Scott Leadingham. We'll start by hearing from Scott. Scott is the Multimedia News Manager for Northwest Public Broadcasting. Scott, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Liz, and I'm really happy to be here. And a quick shout out if there's anyone at Lake Roosevelt High School in Grand Coulee, Washington, my alma mater, go Raiders. So I'm really happy to share some of our insights about how we go through news verification and fact checking and some of the things that we bring to the news verification process. We are, of course, the NPR and PBS station that is based at the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication at Washington State University. Maybe some of you listen to us or hear us or watch us on TV or get us online. So one of the first things that I'm going to go through is these different truths that we have in our kind of fact-checking process and truths about journalism. So truth one, beware the objectivity trap. And what I mean by that is there's this idea out there that all journalists have to be what is called objective, meaning that they are completely neutral. They have no bias. They have no amount of things that they're bringing in to the reporting that they're doing. Well, that's a little bit of a trap, I would say, because no one can be truly, completely 100% objective or neutral, because we all bring our past experiences, our backgrounds into everything that we do. And sometimes it's a strength to have a little bit of background on a topic or your experience in a certain group and you be able to report on them because that helps our understanding of that topic. So there's ethics codes in journalism. Now that might sound like an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp, but no, journalists do have ethics codes that we follow. There's no license to be a journalist, like you have to be for like a doctor or a lawyer. You don't have to pass a state certified exam. Journalism is always done by our credibility, and that is how we maintain ourselves in our ethics. So fairness and accuracy is really what we're going for in all forms of journalism. You can be an opinion journalist or like a columnist, and you can still be a good journalist. You just have to be fair and accurate in all things that you do. So truth number two, sorry, I'm having a little bit of, there we go. Truth number two, journalism is a process, not a product. So let that sink in just for a second. A process, not a product. It's not something that we're producing like a widget in a factory, right? It's the whole assembly line from the design phase to the coming off the assembly line and it being sold. That is what we're going for in journalism. There's these things that these little sayings that maybe you've heard before and we kind of use in journalism as well. If your mother says she loves you, get a second source. What that means is be very skeptical of the information that you're hearing and back it up with other information from other sources who are independent. And that's how we go through that process of fact checking and verification. Stenography is not reporting. Stenography, of course, is the process just of writing things down. Like if you're in a courtroom, there's a stenographer. That's the person who's typing everything so they can get a transcript of everything that's said. That's not journalism. That's part of what journalists do in the reporting process is to record what people are saying and to report it back to us. That's only one step in the process. Here's another saying, believe half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. Let that sink in. Half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. It's just a way of reminding ourselves to always be skeptical of everything that is put in front of us. You might remember a few weeks ago on TikTok, those viral videos of Tom Cruise that were deep fakes. They were not actually the actor Tom Cruise, but they were very convincing, right? Half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. And finally, be skeptical of not only what people are telling you, but why people are telling you. By that, are they trying to use you as a way to get out their misinformation? Are they actually who they are? Are they actually who they say they are? Like if they're claiming that they work for a company and they have insider information, you need to verify that they actually do work for that company, or maybe they were fired in the past for some reason that you need to know about. And why are they telling you this information? Maybe they previously went to another news outlet or another journalist, and those journalists looked into it and said, you know what, this isn't good. And now they're coming to me to try to keep advancing their misinformation. Truth number 3. Sorry, my connection is a little slow there. Here we go. Corrections have short lives and errors live forever. It is true that I'd rather be last and right than first and wrong. So to me, speed is not what I'm going for in our reporting. It is to be accurate and fair, like I said before. As far as I know, there's no awards given for first to report something. Journalism has a lot of awards out there that we have to award each other for our good work, right? There's a lot of breaking news awards, but there's no award that I know of just for being the first person to come out with information. But there is credibility lost when we make errors, and that is what we want to avoid. There's another saying from a journalist and a digital media trainer that I've known for a long time. His name is Srinivasan. You can find him on Twitter at the handle SREE. He says this: nearly everyone will miss nearly everything you do online. Just because you have tens of thousands of followers does not mean tens of thousands of people will see everything you do. And a lot fewer people are going to see the corrections that you make than the original error that you made. So what we want to do is limit the possibility that we ever make those errors in the first place. Truth 4. Journalism is based on credibility, right? So you might be familiar with the idea of the gold standard. If you studied that a little bit in high school about the US economy, we don't have the gold standard. That meant that the gold in the Federal Reserve is what made our currency work. That's not a thing anymore. We don't have what's called the gold standard anymore. We have something else called fiat currency. Journalism doesn't have a gold standard in the sense that we have a bunch of laws that we have to follow and a big rule book. It is based rather on our credibility, and it is a set of values that we have to advance going forward every day. And as new people come into the field, as new people want to maybe become journalists, we have to pass on these values of credibility and accuracy and these ethics codes that I mentioned before. So the fact is that journalists must always work to build, maintain, and strengthen our credibility. And finally, the last truth: everyone is responsible for the information that they share. So not just journalists. If I make an error, that is on me and is on our news organization to fix and correct. But let's be real. It's not just journalists who can spread misinformation unwittingly. Everyone can spread misinformation and disinformation, whether they are trying to or not. So we are all responsible for the information that we share, especially online. Like I said, a lot fewer people are going to see the correction than the original error. Just as a quick example of this. So you might remember a few weeks back in Texas, they had that big, terrible ice storm and millions of people lost power. It was really bad. And Senator Ted Cruz of Texas got in a lot of heat, no pun intended, for going to Cancun during that time. And a lot of people were scrutinizing Ted Cruz for what he was doing and saying at the time. So this tweet made the rounds. So what's going on here in this example? Dr. Reza Aslan is a famous religious scholar. He's on CNN a lot. He's kind of a talking head on TV for a lot of kind of as a historian. So he put out this tweet that said, this is a real tweet. And it was a screenshot or an image of something that Ted Cruz supposedly said in 2016, saying, "I'll believe in climate change when Texas freezes over." So there's a little bit of irony there, of course, saying that, well, Texas did freeze over, and look what Ted Cruz said 4 years ago. Well, actually, Ted Cruz did not say that 4 years ago on Twitter. This is a fake. This was an image that was making the rounds, and it's very easy to make up a fake image and put it on Photoshop and then put it on Twitter, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms, and for people to pick it up and quickly and easily share it. So Dr. Reza Aslan says, this is a real tweet. And that was like, oh my gosh, right? Look at that. More than 19,000 people retweeted that. And then he comes back a little bit later and says, oh, I guess it's not. Meaning that, okay, here's the correction. And look how many fewer people retweeted that at this time, 50. So the point is, we are all responsible for the information we share. And we need to be skeptical about these sorts of things. When we see an image on Twitter like this, it's possibly real, but it's very possibly not as well. Be skeptical. Thank you very much. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you, Scott. Now we'll hear from Mike Caulfield. Mike is a digital literacy expert and the director of blended and networked learning at Washington State University, Vancouver. He is the author of the Check Please fact-checking course and creator of the SIFT fact-checking method. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, and thank you, Liz, and thank you for everybody that put this event together today. Really excited to be here, and I'm going to go through a lot of stuff relatively quickly, but there are resources that have been shared with all the participants in this event, and so the resources go into some of the things I'll share much more deeply. So let's start with this. I like to start off with this particular example here. You see two food products, maybe on Instagram, maybe in your Twitter feed, something like that. One is this Kentucky Fried Chicken donut, right? This is the this thing right here, right? You know, a fried chicken in between two sort of like Krispy Kreme-like donuts. And the other here is Monster caffeinated ham. You know, it's got a little comment here when your son Kyle is hungry after motocross practice. Well, which one of these is true? Are they both true? Are they both real products, or are they something else, right? Now, I want to talk about two ways that you might go about this that are not how you would want to approach it. So these are the bad ways. Really want to stress that. What I'm about to talk about are ways that are not particularly effective. One thing you might say, hey, you know, does this look photoshopped, right? And that may initially seem like a good way to approach this. Does this look photoshopped? Does this look photoshopped? But what we find in practice is that people tend to overrate their ability to spot Photoshop images. And in particular, people tend to think a lot of things that are not photoshopped are actually photoshopped. In fact, if you look at almost any photograph long enough, you'll start to come to the conclusion that there's something a little odd about this photograph. It's just the nature of our brain that the longer we look at something like that, the more we tend to think something is fake. So Photoshop that's not a great way to go about this. The other thing you might say is, you know, is this plausible, right? Are we really living in a country that takes a fried chicken and puts them in between two donuts? Is that plausible? Are we really living in a country that would put caffeine into ham? Is that plausible? And again, this may seem like a good strategy initially, but it is not. It is not a good strategy because it turns out that a lot of things that actually happen don't seem plausible to us. They don't seem plausible because we have limited experience. We have limited expertise. We don't necessarily know a lot about things outside of the narrow domain of life that we tend to exist in, right? So what's a better way of going about this? The better way is something that a friend of mine, Sam Weinberg, calls lateral reading. And it's stop looking at the thing in front of you, get off that page, get away from that photograph and check the web. So if we look at this post here, it says donut chicken sandwiches at KFC. The chicken the sandwich there has a little, there's from something called Candy Hunting. It has a little caption here. Little note. And we can just do a real quick check on that. And what do we see immediately when we're looking at when we're looking down this SERP page, this search engine result page? We see stories from USA Today that seem to announce this as a new product. We see things from Business Insider, Newsweek, CNN. Some more local sources as well. This, just looking at this seems like this is a real sandwich, and that you could go out and get. And if you want to know more about the sandwich, you click in, you look at these, you go a little deeper. But even just looking at that search engine result page, we're getting a sense that this is a real thing. Now, what happens when we look at something like this? When we look at this monster caffeinated ham thing. Now, we don't have any text here we can select, so we're just gonna go up here and we're gonna type in monster caffeine. Can I spell caffeine? Probably not. Ham. And we get a completely different experience when we do this, right? What are we seeing here? The first thing we see is that the things that are popping up are a lot of these fact-checking sites, which, sometimes it's not always a bad sign, but generally when you see a wall of Snopes, truth or fiction, and that sort of thing, when you search something, I'd say 8 times out of 10, you're going to find that there's at least some controversy around this. BuzzFeed News, that may seem weird thinking of BuzzFeed News as a good source, but actually BuzzFeed News, not BuzzFeed.com, but BuzzFeed News turns out to be have a really good set of fact checkers, some of the best in the business. And if we click into these, right, if we click into these fact checks, we don't actually have to take Snopes' word for it that this is fake. Because what we find when we check, when we do this is we find that Snopes has provided us with various links that show their research, that show their work, right? And this is one of the things you should look for from a fact checker. A lot of people say, hey, how can I trust the fact checker? Who fact checks the fact checker? Well, you do, right? And you are able to do that because an ethical fact checker gives you the resources they use to reach their conclusion. And if you want to pursue it further, you can pursue it further. Okay, so what's the main point here? The main point is that a lot of times when we look at things, we immediately race to react to the thing in front of us, right? But what we want to do is we want to say, what do I really know about this, right? What do I actually know about this subject? What do I know about the person that shared this with me? Do I know enough, to trust this, or do I have to do just a little more work? Not a whole bunch, but just a little more work. SIFT is a method that we use to check things quickly. And I really want to stress quickly because you're not looking for a Pulitzer Prize when you do this. You're not looking for some sort of journalism award. You just really want to check it relatively quickly and make sure that things look kosher. So the first thing is, of course, stop. The second is investigate the source. And what I mean by investigate the source is, again, we're not digging deep into this person, but if there is a Wikipedia page, right? If there's a Wikipedia page on the person, just find out who this person is about, or this organization. If there's a profile, hover over the profile, get a better sense. Quick little things. We'll talk about find better coverage. This is the idea that you don't have to look at the story that came to you. You can go out and find a better story. So very often, social media does really well at feeding us stories that are interesting to us and useful to us, but it doesn't always give us the best source, right? So it may know that we would be excited about a KFC chicken donut sandwich, right? But it may feed us, not the best source. So we can go and find another source, and then trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. A lot of times, what you'll find is that the story that you get, is the tweet of a blog post, of another blog post, of a tabloid story, of some original reporting of a research report. And we want to at least get back to the original reporting, maybe back to the research report, right? We want to try to get closer to the source of that original reporting. How does this work in practice? Well, here's an example that came up the other day. This is a claim that Marvin Hagler died from the COVID-19 vaccine, right? That's a claim, right? Claim is just a statement someone makes that is testable as a fact, right? It may be hard to test, but it's something that we can go and find out, or at least attempt to find out whether it's true, right? So is this true? Again, I'm talking about really simple things you can do here. The first thing we might want to ask is the person sharing this in a particular position to know, right? So we look at Sandra Whedon up here. Sandra Whedon was a member of Marvin Hagler's family. maybe that would be something, right? She might have some inside knowledge of what happened here. If she was Marvin Hagler's doctor, that might be something too. In this case, just hovering over shows us not much. Just this always question, which I guess she is doing here, but it doesn't really show us much here. It's not against nothing. I have to show some of these sources because we're doing source checking, but it's nothing against Sandra here, right? She's sharing something that she believes is true, but I don't think we'd take her word for it, right? So what can we do here? Well, in this case, we can do a trace, right? She is reporting something from an article here, so we can go to that actual source. Now, this is something from something called the Daily Mail, right? And we see that she has, wow, that's a lot. We see that she has actually quoted it, right? That ICU fighting off effects of the vaccine, apparently from someone named Tommy Hearns. But before we get too into that, like, I don't want you to read yet, right? I don't want you to read. A lot of this is just stopping you from reading or viewing until you get a little more information. I want you to go up to the bar here, right? This location bar, and I want you to type just take everything off there, do a space, do Wikipedia. Let's find out about the source. If we click through and look at the Wikipedia page for the Daily Mail, what do we find? We find that, while it has won a number of awards, we find that it's also widely criticized for its printing of sensationalist scare stories of science and medical research. Does that mean they're wrong here? Does that mean this is a wrong report? No, it doesn't mean that that's a wrong report, but it does mean that this is not our best first stop, right? We can find a better source than this, or at least just a marginally better source. I mean, if we were sitting here thinking, hey, what would be a good source to figure out if this was true? We wouldn't say, let's choose the paper that's been widely criticized for sensationalist coverage of medical issues, right? That wouldn't be our first thought. Like, oh, that's a good choice. No, we'd probably want to go for something else. So we traced it here. We investigated the source, that's the I in SIFT. Now we're going to go and we're going to find other coverage. Essentially what we're going to say with this is, okay, that source didn't work out. Can we find another source of this? Now, you got to be a little careful. Sometimes when you choose search terms, it kind of, based on the search terms you choose, it can pop up unreliable sources. Sometimes you might want to do this, just trim this down a little, right, like that. But what do we see immediately when we do this? We see a couple of top stories. We see one here from a local station. That's MUR. I happen to know that's from New Hampshire. I'm originally from New Hampshire. But what we see is that the widow is disputing this claim his death was caused by that. This is not my favorite source, but again, we see this again, factcheck.org, a good fact-checking source. And again, we're getting a sense here. Now we can dig deeper into this and we can see, in this case, I might do factcheck.org. There's a fact check out there. It's going to show its work. We're going to be able to follow those links. What we'll see if we click into fact check, because of a limited time here, I won't go deep into that. But if you were to click through to factcheck.org here, what you would see is the only person that said this was Tommy Hearns, who is a longtime rival of this boxer, Marvin Hagler, not associated with the family, and that's the only source. That's the only source for this information. And the wife is disputing it, right? Does this mean this is settled for all time? No, it doesn't mean it's settled for all time. It does mean you shouldn't share it, right? It's pretty clear that the preponderance of evidence at this point is that he didn't die from it. We're open to new evidence coming forward, but the one person here that's talking that should have some idea, his wife, says no. We're gonna leave it at that. All right. So going through it really quickly again. Stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, and trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. And again, you can find these skills if you search them online under SIFT. Throw my name at the end of it, it'll pop some things up. But also you have, there's a list of resources for MisinfoDay that has links to some of this work that you can use yourself or use in the classroom. let's take another example. Whenever I do examples, I like to sort of set a story, because part of what you're trying to do here is you're trying to figure out, is this sort of trustworthy enough for the purpose I want to put it to, right? You're not trying to never be wrong. This is important to say. You're not trying to never be wrong. You're trying to be right more often, right? And that's a different sort of thing, right? So this is something called Clean Food Facts, and it has this ingredient guide here, and also this product guide to meatless products. And the idea here is, if you're thinking of going meat-free in your diet, you could look at this and you could see, hey, are there some ingredients in some of these meat-free products that I should be a bit worried about, right? And so, for example, we can look at chicken. Seems to be a theme today, I guess. I'm doing alpha chicken nuggets. And what does it say here? It says some notable ingredients are canola oil, maltodextrin, methyl cellulose. What's that? Wow. Okay, this is a little disturbing, right? Active ingredient in many laxatives. There's a laxative in my meatless chicken. That sounds not so good, right? But wait a second. Do you even know, where is this coming from? You see how easy it is to kind of just go in and start clicking around, and you don't even know where you are. So let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at this source before we figure out if this is the best source to plan your diet around. We're going to take a look here. Now, one thing we notice is we don't see something come up for this particular page. We see the Center for Organizational Research and Education. But what we actually do see, we'll see when we click in it, that this is in fact the right spot. But keep an eye out for that when you do a Wikipedia search. Make sure you're clicking into the right Wikipedia page. So this is the organization behind this particular guide. What is this actual organization about? If we look over here, we find it's a lobbying firm. Now, I don't know if you all have learned what a lobbying firm is, but a lobbying firm is a company that tries to work on behalf of an industry, like the electric industry, the energy industry, the coffee industry, whatever. And it tries to get various laws passed in a way that, or repealed in a way that works in their favor, right? That's what a lobbying firm is. It's not actually, a lobbying firm is not really a public information service, right? A lobbying firm is not like it's not a grassroots movement, and it's not like a research center. It is trying to change things politically for the specific goals of its clients, which are usually corporate clients, although not always. Lobbying can be on the behalf of various social justice issues and things like that. So, okay, so it's a lobbying org. It's not some sort of nutrition center that you've stumbled into. What does it lobby for? One of the things that we can look at here, we can go through the whole page here. But if we click into, this is also called astroturfing, by the way. If we click into the person that runs it here, we can see that this is a person that generally runs campaigns against soda taxation. They've run things that are related to supporting, maybe related to supporting the tobacco industry, taxes, national debt, and so forth, minimum wage, challenges regulations sought by consumer safety and environmental groups. And if you scroll down further, what you'll find is that some of the primary clients of this guy and of this firm are the meat industry. So once you know that, right? Once you know that this is a person in a group that works on behalf of the meat industry, you can go back to that page. It's going to make a lot more sense to you. Like, I was wondering before, like, why is this health site that is supposedly about me being a better vegetarian? Like, why is it doing alpha chicken nuggets versus chicken nuggets? That seems a little weird. I'm trying to give up on meat. I'm just trying to be a healthy, vegetarian. Well, I mean, it's probably because what they really want to do is convince you somehow that chicken nuggets are safer, or at least less of a laxative than your meatless alternatives. But it's not for your health. It's not research. It's to try to get you to favor meat over meatless products, right? So not where we want to get our information from. And I hope what you're seeing at this point is that a lot of these things, there are things that are going to be mysteries for the ages. There are things that are going to be mysteries for a week. And then there are things that you can settle in about 60 seconds. And I'm just asking you to settle those things that can be settled in 60 seconds. I'm just asking you to settle them. Here's one I liked. So this right here, I don't know if you can see how well you can see that. Let's zoom big in a little. Do you see this? This is a picture of birds formed in the shape of birds. A bird, right? It's like I don't know, like Transformers, like bird Transformers, right? They all gathering and they're turning into a bird. Like that is crazy stuff, right? That is crazy stuff. And I think again, a lot of people will look at this and they'll say shopped. This is shopped, But again, I don't want you to do that. What I want you to ask is, again, go through SIFT, right? First thing we might do is we might investigate the source here, but we find that this person is a poet. They're not necessarily an ornithologist or something like that. They're probably not enough to sort of just hang our hat on in terms of whether this is true. But when we hover over the actual photographer who shared this, we find that they're the 2021 Irish Press Photographer of the Year, right? That's what they say, at least. We don't have to take their word for it, right? But that would change things, right? A photographer might suffer some professional consequences were they to fake a photo like this, right? There's some reputational consequences that might be involved there. So if we actually go up here and I'll have to fix this search in a minute here. But if we actually search for him, right, we find that a couple of things, right? One thing is that he does, here's the Irish Times, and you could look up the Irish Times. The Irish Times is a legit publication, and he is actually Photographer of the Year, right? We could click into that, right? We could click into that and make sure that that's true. I'll tell you, in the interest of time, it's true. He's Photographer of the Year. And he's not a CGI photographer. He's not a digital artist, right? He's actually usually a sports photographer, but he's not someone that sort of creates fake stuff. And so that in itself, I'd say if you just share in a bird pic, that's probably a deep enough investigation. But let's say we want to go, let's say we really want to dig into this. We could actually look at the claim, right? So we investigated the source. In this case, I'd say the source is good enough that we could just share it. Well-known photographer, award-winning photographer, not known for digital art, saying this is real. Good enough for me. But what if we looked at this and we said, I don't know, birds, whatever. I mean, let's just start here. You find actually this has been published in a bunch of, these things always mess me up here. They value my privacy, right? I accept. This has not only been published, right, in a reputable magazine, but actually there's a video, which you'll see after this little start here. There's actually a video he was shooting while he was taking the pictures. And look at what happens here. This is a murmuration, starlings. And there you go. Isn't that amazing? That is just mind-blowing, right? But you hear, I don't have the sound on here, but you can hear the shutter of his camera as he's doing this. But just, again, and this is one thing I really want to, as we wind down towards the end of the session, I really want to stress, fact-checking is not just about debunking, right? Fact-checking is about as much understanding the things that are true that you would initially dismiss as it is about understanding the things that you initially accepted that turn out to be true. And the truth is that you can miss a lot of really fascinating stuff and a lot of really important news if you just take a default position of cynicism that, oh, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake, right? We don't want you to be cynical. We want you to what we call discern, right? We want you to give more credibility to the things that are true, less credibility to the things that are fake. And so one of the things I hope as you come out of this is that you realize that taking a little more time in applying some of these techniques can help you, applying some of these techniques can help you discern, right? Without becoming cynical or without becoming gullible. Neither of those things is particularly attractive to us. Now, it looks like we have just a little more time, so I'm going to choose. Oh, let me show you this one here. This is just something. Where is it? Sometimes things are not solvable. I wanted to tell you this. You may all know about MoviePass, right? So MoviePass, I don't know if you remember MoviePass. MoviePass was this card, you'd pay like $10 a month and you could see as many movies as you wanted. And unsurprisingly, shockingly, this business model didn't work out and they went bankrupt, right? This thing a couple days ago popped up. And it said, there's a countdown on the MoviePass website, right? What? You go here. The MoviePass is about to start, 3 days and 3 hours. Sometimes you can get fact checking and can say things are true. Sometimes you get fact checking and say things are false. Sometimes it's in between. In this one, I'm desperate to know if this is true. Not because I want to go into a movie theater next week. Please, to get on the other side of this pandemic, that might be really interesting to have a MoviePass, right? I'm thinking like fall, right? But if we actually look at this, right? If we actually look at this and we say, let's say MoviePass really failed. I like that, right? Launch. I misspelled. If you click into the stories on this, what you'll find is that people just don't know, right? You can go to Variety, you can go to Cineblend, you can go to all these sites. And what you'll find is people have tried to figure out what's going on. It doesn't seem to be the initial people associated with MoviePass, but they can't get a clear answer from other people. So in this case, you know what? You can share that and you can say, hey, this seems like nobody knows what's going on at the moment. Could be true, could be false, but you could share it. But just say that, like say, hey, this looks like this might not be a clear-cut case that this is coming back, but I thought you might like to know, and then check back. In any case, we should know in 3 days or so. So that's the SIFT method. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll pass it back to Liz.
All right, thank you so much to Mike and to Scott for speaking with us and showing us those activities. Thanks to all of you for tuning in, and we hope you can stick around for the next session. If you can't, the recordings will be posted after the event. And like Mike referenced, we'll also be sending out a toolkit that has lessons and resources that you can use to do more activities like the ones you did today and continue this learning in your classroom. Thank you.